Good afternoon. They said no more than 15 slides. I have 60, so you can shoot me later. So we have to crack on. Before I talk about what I'm meant to be talking about, a few slides. In the summer of last year, 2 bulk carriers locked horns together off Andros. This one had water flooding into her number 5 cargo hold. Good business for the Greek salvors and good business for the Greek shipyards, those that are left. In October last year, this large vessel went on a voyage into the side of this oil tanker. And in January of this year, a vessel took a large bite out of the side of this bulk carrier in way of cargo hold number 4. Multi-million-dollar claims in all cases. A quick quiz, the island of anybody? Oh, there's no money in the room. This is Ince, yes, correct. 6 weeks ago, she had a visitor on the rocks. A Lloyd's open form was signed, and she was safely refloated. Anybody for this one? Astypalia, correct. Lovely island. About 4 weeks ago, she had an uninvited guest, again on the rocks, again a Lloyd's open form was signed. Not the view you really want to see when you look over the bow of your ship. You may be thinking that at least one of those casualties resulted from a breakdown maybe of the engine, maybe a steering gear failure, or maybe a failure of some of the navigational equipment. You'd all be wrong, of course, in many different ways, of course, and not just the people on the bridge. The same old story as we've heard from the previous speakers. You may have seen the article in Tradewinds a few weeks ago, 100 things that should not have happened in the last year. I think we've been involved with about 45 of these, and I think if I was asked to analyze all 100, I may struggle to find one that resulted from a breakdown in equipment, more likely to be a breakdown in bridge team management. Far too much of this, way too much of that, and definitely not enough of this. These 2 guys are using their most valuable navigational asset available, their eyes. They're also looking through the bridge windows, which is often a bonus these days. Throw into the mix extra pressure from paperwork, checklists, shoreside people, and you often end up with this. Yes, that is Captain Kirk from the good ship Star Enterprise, currently working off West Africa here, but it's the best I could do at Google, I'm afraid. This looks very impressive, smartphones, smart white pressed uniforms, but having investigated major casualties for the last 14 years or so, I still find that many young officers don't have a full, a proper, and practical understanding of these, the Deck Officers' Bible, the collision regulations. Why that is, I think perhaps we have to turn to the maritime training colleges for part of the answer. So just summarizing that little bit, I think if today's captain, without the bottle of rum, right pocket, of course, if he wants to keep his hair, he needs young officers who can not only do fantastic spreadsheets on their laptops and iPads, he also needs young officers on the bridge who can correctly and consistently apply the collision regulations. And perhaps controversially, he also needs an owner to put more people on the ship. Yes, I know, freight rates, etc. That's a subject for perhaps another conference. So casualty investigations, the evidence, we need to get it quickly before anyone else. We need to test the crew evidence against other records, both traditional and modern, and we need to get the story straight. And crucially, we need to control the flow of information. In the good old days, I used to have the crew, of course, charts and logbooks, hopefully completely marked up and filled in, not often the case. If I was lucky, I would have a course recorder, and if I was very lucky, I'd have a printout from the telegraph logger. Now there is much more sophisticated equipment on board the modern bridge. These days, I sometimes don't have to talk to the witness. I have the data in my back pocket. I just need to know what was going through the guy's head before the incident. And that is often the scary bit of the whole exercise. You've all heard of the black box, similar in many ways to an aircraft black box. It's not black, of course. To give it its full title, Voyage Data Recorder, or VDR for short. Electronic charts are slowly replacing paper charts, and occasionally I'll have GPS printouts to assist. They're spying on you ashore, of course. These days, ships are being tracked 24/7 by AIS stations, Automatic Identification System, or as many of you may call it, ICE. Service providers such as QPS in the Netherlands can, for a sum of money, provide me with a movie clip showing how two ships came together or how a ship went aground, often within a matter of minutes. How can all this technology help? Well, last year, in a river in Argentina, I spent €3,500 of my client's money, and from QPS got a movie clip showing how the two vessels came together. Before I got to the ship, I had a good idea of what had happened. Our ship is top left, heading southeasterly. The other ship is bottom right, heading northwesterly. The story was that we were proceeding along the starboard side of the channel. The other ship veered to port across our bow, and there was a collision. These are screenshots, not movies. My IT doesn't stretch yet to movies. You can see here the other ship goes too close to the bank on her starboard side. She suffers what is called bank effect. She veers to port across our bow, and there is a collision. The story was we were on the starboard side. Like hell we were in the middle of the channel, something our opponents can use against us. Significant damage to both vessels. While I was on that ship, I got a call from a Greek owner. He said, my ship has just gone aground further upstream. Can I go and help? So I grabbed a taxi, spent another €3,500, got the AIS data into my laptop, and before I got on board, I had a good idea of what had happened. The story here was that the pilot had taken the wrong turn, and he was complaining about a poor powered vessel. If we run the sequence, you can see that's not the case. He didn't take the wrong turn. He was simply daydreaming. He took the turn too late and ran his ship aground onto a mud bank. And this is how I found the ship. Of course, the pilot was daydreaming. That means the master and the watch officer were also dreaming. A very large container ship and a very large LNG carrier. In the Singapore Straits, let's call them ships A and B. You know what's coming, otherwise we won't be here. It's a collision. Everything looks fairly peaceful in this AIS shot. For some reason, B decides to go off on a frolic to the north for no good reason. 1 minute before the collision, B is careering round to port. A has no time to get out of the way, do anything, and of course, bang. And this was the outcome, B leaving a mark on A. And believe it or not, claims for this vessel exceed $20 million. This is a radar image captured by a vessel's black box, voyage data recorder. Our vessel is heading northeasterly through very busy waters off Denmark. On the port side, he has 4 ships heading in his direction, and his plan is to continue ahead, pass around a buoy on his port side, and head to the northwest. In a bit of a dilemma is our old second officer. The 4 ships on his port bow, as per the rules, should all give way. They are in a bit of a dilemma. They can't go to starboard because there is a large area of shallow water on their starboard side. Our guy really has 2 options. He can slow down or stop, or he can get out of there, take a round turn to starboard, which perhaps he should have done. There was plenty of room. What he couldn't do was go to port because of the large area, the big shallow bank on his port side. There were stories about buoys being moved, service boats carrying out maintenance. So with those options, what does our second mate do? He goes to port and runs aground on the shallow bank. Without all this data, I probably would have been on board for perhaps 1 or 2 days longer. The information we get now, often before I get on board, cuts the investigation time quite considerably. Let's move east off the Korean coast. 2 ships again, A and B. A is the bad guy this time. B is also bad, but A is more so. A decides that she needs to come to port to get back on track. She actually calls B and tells B that she's going to pass round her stern. A very slow, laboured turn by A. B seems to have forgotten about A until A rams his engine room. And that is the result. You saw the picture earlier. Fortunately, no pollution. Again, the data helping considerably. Just a few examples of how technology has changed, certainly in the world of casualty investigation. But technology can also harm your case. This is a large tanker in the Gulf of Aden. She was rammed at full speed by a container ship. No angle of blow survey required there. A few meters further aft, and there would have been a lot of black, thick oil in the water. This was the first collision case to go to the English High Court where the black box data, the voyage data recorder, was the evidence in chief. Crucially, the bridge conversations that were captured by the microphones, which are dotted along the ceiling of the bridge. After quite a rocky ride in court with these bridge conversations, the judge finally ruled in our favour. Unfortunately, cargo interests who had paid money out in salvage wanted their money back, and they used the VDR data to their advantage. They argued that Mr. Smith was incompetent to act as second officer and/or officer of the watch on the vessel in that he did not know and/or was unable to tell port from starboard. Ouch. They also said, as can be heard from the vessel's VDR, the second officer was listening to pop music on the bridge at all material times prior to the collision. He was. It was Madonna. And rather unhelpfully, Madonna was singing Like a Virgin. That is true. 40 seconds left, but I can take a couple of Mihali's minutes. This was a total loss off Gibraltar on my birthday in 2008. I wasn't in the best of shapes when I jumped on the plane. Anyway, this poor vessel dragged anchor in atrocious weather. Nearing the rocks off Europa Point, she finally broke into 2. The crew eventually all rescued. A tug, desperately trying to get a line onto the vessel for hours as the vessel slowly inched towards the cliffs. The captain screaming, shouting, telling everybody they're all going to die. The tug was desperately trying to get a line on board. He was trying to reassure the captain that everything would be okay, and at 16:23, and we had a 100-page transcript of these bridge conversations, some good, some bad, some quite colourful. The tug captain is saying, "Captain, don't worry, don't worry." So there was a pause, and the captain, whose ship is about to run aground, replied in quite a measured tone, "Okay, I will not worry, but if I escape, I come and I will kill you." That's it. Thank you very much.